Hello, everybody. Welcome. This is Carl's Roller Coaster Podcast. Hello, dear friends. Welcome back. Welcome back to the roller coaster. It's with great pleasure that I bring to you all today Ruud Jolie, lead guitarist of the symphonic metal band Within Temptation, of which I had the pleasure to tour with last year throughout Europe, playing arenas. It was an amazing experience. And Ruud, he has his own project For All We Know, and he's also the guitarist and acoustic guitar player on Maiden United, which is an Iron Maiden acoustic project. But obviously his main gig is Within Temptation, which is a band that has been growing steadily for the last few years, and it just reached that level of arena here in Europe. And yeah, he's a great dude. I had an amazing conversation with him, and I hope you all will enjoy it. With you all, Mr. Ruud Jolie. Hello, Ruud, my friend. How are you doing?
Hello. I'm not too bad. I'm good. I'm good. Thank you.
Good stuff. It's great.
How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Very well. It's good to have you on the roller coaster. Thanks for taking the time for being a guest on this new venture of mine. Just launched a few weeks ago, and it's been overwhelmingly great so far. So thank you for your time, for taking the time today to talk to me. Last time we saw each other, and when we actually met each other, was during last year's fall European tour that we did together, and that was very, very pleasant. I'm sure we're going to talk about that later on the road. But welcome to the roller coaster, Ruud. Thanks for being here, mate.
Thank you for having me. I feel honored to be one of your first guests. So that's great.
Good stuff. So how's things in the Netherlands? What are you currently up to? You guys doing shows during the summer? What's happening at the moment?
Well, on a personal level, a lot of stuff is happening because I had a lightning strike in my chimney last week.
Oh my goodness.
Before the recording started, we were talking a little bit about the weather, as people tend to do. But the weather here last week was terrible, was really terrible. And usually I'm not that afraid of lightning and thunder and bad weather. I usually think it's cozy because I was actually at home downstairs, lying on my couch, reading a book, and thinking, "Oh, it's so nice and warm and cozy with my cats, on my couch." And I hear that thunder. Oh, so nice! And midnight, I heard a huge, super loud bang. All the power went out. I was, it was pitch dark, and that's when I saw, after a while, though, that I had a lightning strike in my chimney, and it ricocheted on my roof. So pretty much the whole ceiling in my attic came down.
Holy
and it was pretty terrible, and especially if you I'm a huge Star Wars fan. I used to collect a lot of the vintage stuff, so from 1977 to 85, that period, and I keep most of my of those prized possessions in my attic. So because it's not really an attic, it's like a room, but it's in my attic where my attic used to be. So half of the ceiling was on top of my toys.
Oh
so
my goodness! But then what happened? Did any of your collectibles got?
It's a miracle. Nothing happened, except for maybe one stormtrooper helmet that I have. But it's not that bad. Let's call that a battle scar.
Oh my goodness! But that's great to hear it because I like to collect a few things. I used to be a big Iron Maiden collector many years ago. Back at my parents' house in Brazil, I have a huge Iron Maiden collection, but I stopped collecting years and years ago. But I do understand what is it like to have. Yes. Are you the kind of person that goes on eBay and keep following auctions about specific items that they want to purchase, especially old stuff like you mentioned. They collect stuff from the 70s. That's amazing.
Yeah, I used to do that, but not that much anymore since I've adopted a little bit of a different life philosophy. I watched this documentary 2 years ago, Minimalism, Meaningful Life. It's on Netflix, and for some reason that resonated a lot with me, and that really struck something in me as a person. I immediately understood what was wrong with me. One of the things that was wrong with me, though, and since then I've been downgrading my collection and pretty much all of my possessions. As a matter of fact, there was just a half an hour ago a woman here to pick up one of my TVs. I had a huge TV in my bedroom, but I almost never used it, and it's way too much crap and stuff and clutter. And
that's very interesting, because I know the documentary you're talking about. I have never watched it, but I've heard many good things about it. And now that you mention it, I'm making a note here. It's definitely going to be something I'm going to be watching on the coming days, because I mean, 2 points that I'd like to raise. I haven't watched it, but just the idea of it and thinking about it sometimes makes me wonder and think. Like I myself, for example, I like collecting T-shirts from tours, from bands that I get on the road, and not only that, but like I'm involved with craft beer as well. So when I get a T-shirt from a brewery that means something to me, or even my running gear from specific races, I keep those even though I don't wear them. So basically, like at home here in London, I have suitcases filled up with T-shirts, like proper suitcases. In Brazil I have even more, and it's stuff that I will at the back of my mind I always think that one day I'll have one room in the house where I'm going to have all of it on display, but that's been going for a while and it hasn't happened. So with that in mind, I mean, how difficult it is for you to kind of like, for example, you've been collecting, like you mentioned, Star Wars artifacts and things for a long time, and some of those things they probably mean quite a lot to you, for whatever various reasons. How hard has it been for you to kind of like, if you have, because I don't know if you actually have started maybe, I don't know, reselling them or giving them away? What's been going on that front?
Yeah, well, first of all, let me tell you that I'm absolutely not an expert on the whole minimalism subject. And on the other hand, there are no rules for that. It's different for everyone. But what I have noticed is that, I feel that once you take away some of the items that don't mean that much to you, the items that do mean a lot to you get more spotlight, so to speak, and they start to become even nicer and even better, and because even though this is a typical example of less is more, in my opinion. So I used to have a lot of shit. Is it allowed to say the word shit on this podcast?
Yes, you can say anything you want, my friend.
Oh, really?
Yes. Cool. It's a +18 podcast.
Well, let's do that first then. No, but seriously, I've started selling stuff. Yeah, definitely, and other things like books I've been donating, and other stuff like and clothes I've been donating. But stuff that has been in my kitchen drawers, I've been just throwing it away. And it's interesting that I had a fun conversation with someone a couple of months ago. We were talking about how many pairs of scissors that a person needs. And I have 2 pairs of scissors, one big pair and one small pair. And then how many pens do I have? I don't know, maybe 5, because sometimes, pens is usually something that you buy in bulk. You have these boxes with 30 pens, and then there are pens all over the fucking place. And then the guy said, "Yeah, but I always want more scissors because in case I can't find them." And then I said, "Yeah, but that's maybe because there are 30 pence on top of it, you know." and it's a different mindset. But for me, it really works. I have, and I'm still in the process of doing it. And
Amazing.
maybe like half a year ago, I sold this old guitar amp that I had from when I was still studying jazz at the conservatory, and it was in my attic. And as a matter of fact, it had moved from the attic in my former house to this house, and I've been living in this house for almost 11 years. And I came across that amp, and I was like, you know what, fuck it, I'm just gonna sell it. And I was cleaning it and I was testing it because the next day this guy was going to visit me to buy it. And at that moment I was like, oh, damn it, this is a great amp. I was playing on my Telecaster and it had a really nice jazz tone. And but I promised to that guy that I would sell it, so I knew that I would instantly regret it, which I did, and therefore I bought pretty much the same model again months ago. So, but that has only been the first time that I have really regretted it, I think. So
Yeah,
for me it works. I like it.
what's your approach in terms of that's a good example you just gave, but how have you been approaching the minimalism in regards of your personal gear? Because as a guitarist and as a musician, but like as a guitarist specifically, we all know that guitarists love buying guitars, and having all sorts of different types of guitar. So how is that going for you? Did you notice that you've been purchasing or asking your endorser to send you less guitars? Is it something that you notice a difference on your behavior towards that as well, or is it something that you just didn't notice any difference?
No, that's a very good question. I have sold some stuff. I had some mixing controllers that I actually didn't use anymore. I sold some microphones, some preamps, and it's with those kind of things. It's always a little bit dangerous to think, yeah, but maybe one day I will have this producing job or this recording job that I might need those microphones. But if I was really honest, and I was honest, I hadn't used them for 3 years, and worst case scenario, I can always borrow them from someone. But and that's also something that I was talking to someone about. I really like there are some musicians, Steve Harris, for instance. Apparently, he still uses the same bass guitar that he has been using for ages. And there are many guitar players who have their to-go-to guitar, if you know what I mean. And of course they have backups, but they usually just have their one favorite guitar that they can do everything with. And I find that is such a romantic idea, that a guy and his guitar.
And it becomes that trademark as well. Like you get Brian May from Queen. That guitar
That's a very good example.
he used that guitar forever, and he made the guitar himself back in the day.
That's a perfect example.
As Steve Harris, it became his trademark. I mean, it's quite unimaginable seeing that guy playing live without using his Fender Precision bass white with the mirrored background and the West Ham sticker on it. If you see him playing with another bass, it's just you immediately notice that he's not playing with his bass. And that's true, because as far as I know, he records with that bass, he plays live with the bass, and I'm sure he's got plenty of others at home to fool around with. But then again, this is just a guess. This is just an assumption. He might not even have that.
I think he does, but and I've been told that even that white one that you just described with the West Ham sticker, that's the old blue one that he used on, for instance, the Live After Death.
I've heard about that, and I'm not entirely sure if that's true. I don't know about that, but I've heard the story as well. I did hear the story. I think he still has actually the blue. I think that blue still exists, but then who knows? gonna have to have him on the podcast at some point to answer that question, perhaps.
It would be very interesting.
So tell me what's just literally last night I was doing my preparation for our conversation, and I came across your solo project.
Nice.
And I was listening to it. We Are All We Know. Am I correct?
For all we know.
For all we know. Sorry, for all we know, exactly.
Yeah.
And I mean, that started a few years ago, and I think the album was released back in 2007. And
no, the first one was released in 2011.
Right.
And the last one was released 2 years ago.
Oh, okay, right. Yeah. And have you ever done anything like? I mean, when it comes to like, obviously your main band, the band you've been working with since 2001, I believe you joined Within Temptation, right?
Yeah, correct.
You when it comes to your solo project, do you like? I listened to it and I really enjoyed it. It's more guitar orientated as you would expect, but I really enjoyed the music. And have you ever toured with that? Is there anything that you ever like tried to take to the road or?
Well, let me explain to you why I started that project. You know, I have I'm a session player. I'm a session guitarist. So that means that I have recorded a lot of albums, and some of them have been extremely successful, like the Within Temptation ones. And I'm proud of each and every album that I record. But back before I started this project, I wanted to have the idea, the day that I would be on my deathbed, maybe in 40 years, hopefully, I wanted to have at least one CD in my hands that I made myself, that I wrote the music for, that I produced, that I made pretty much all the musical decisions on. Mm-hmm. And that was my primary goal. My secondary goal was, since I financed that whole project myself, my secondary goal was that I would at least, make some money back on it, so that it in the end would have only cost me time and calories, as I would say. And because we all know that these days you don't make any money with music anymore. And let me get this straight, that was absolutely not my first intention. But I just wanted to have an album that I was even more proud of than all the other stuff that I did. Mm-hmm. And I released the first one in 2011, and a couple of years later, I decided to make another one just for fun. And I have done 3 live gigs last year, only 3, because it's really hard to plan those live gigs. And yeah, it has never been my intention to make a whole new product out of this project. So but I really wanted to play it live once, so I did 3 gigs here in the Netherlands. And maybe when things are getting a little bit slower Within Temptation again, I might pick it up. I don't know. I have enough material to do gigs, so that's yeah.
That's great. That's really good. Yeah, with Within Temptation, things have been just phenomenal. Like I remember many years ago seeing them supporting, I think it was Iron Maiden 2008 in London.
Twickenham Stadium.
Twickenham Stadium, exactly. Yes, that's right. Cool. And I was there. Yeah, I was there. It was my first year when I moved to London, and I saw the show. I think Avenged Sevenfold was on the bill as well. And I remember seeing the band live, and but at that time, the band wasn't, as far as I can remember, it wasn't as big as it is currently. I mean, I think the band has gone to a completely different level, and having experienced the tour that I did with you guys last year with Ego Kill Talent, I was extremely impressed by the whole production, the whole team around the band, and obviously the crowds. The crowds were unbelievable. I mean, the shows were literally massive. Every single show. I remember Paris, I think it was 9,000 people or something. It was just, I mean, in Amsterdam, 2 big sold out nights for like 6,000 people strong each night, and that's like, when you realize that hard work pays off, because I don't think it has always been the case, right? Like when you joined the band 2001, did you guys had a clear vision that you guys were headed towards what the band is at now, or what was the mojo in the band? What was happening at the time, and what was the ambition at the time, if you can remember?
Yeah, well, I joined in 2001, and that was when the Ice Queen single had just been released here in the Netherlands from the Mother Earth album. And 3 weeks after I joined, it became a huge success on radio and TV because we had this crappy video. So I tend to think that I am the sole reason why we are successful these days.
Amazing.
And of course, I'm joking. I, you know, that's one of those things, being at the right time at the right place. And back then, it's 18 years ago, that kind of music wasn't that common, especially not on the mainstream radio here in the Netherlands. Of course, you had Nightwish from Finland. They were doing, something similar, and there were some Dutch bands as well. They started to emerge after that, I think. But especially for the mainstream people here in the Netherlands, it was a completely new sound. And I think that contributed to the success here in the Netherlands in the mainstream, because we were very mainstream back then. We had number 2 radio hit, and I think that got the attention from a record company in Germany, Gun Records, and they re-released the Mother Earth album, and they sent us out on our very first European tour as a support for Paradise Lost. And that was in 2003, I think. And from there on, it kept on growing. And I tend to believe that it's still growing a little bit. Of course, not as hard as it used to be, but, it's ridiculous. We're headlining the Grens Pop Festival next week in Belgium.
Wow.
That's like a pretty big deal,
Mm-hmm.
because it's our 5th, 6th, or 7th time playing there, but we still climb the bill higher and higher every year. Now we headline the Friday, so that's amazing.
That's really cool.
And to answer your question, no, we never expected that, because I can only talk for myself, but can only speak for myself. But I thought that we do 1 or 2 festival runs, and then we do another album, and then maybe we do the same kind of venues, the same sizes. Maybe we do them smaller, but yeah, like I said, it has been growing since then.
What do you think is, because we obviously being involved on the music business, we know that it takes a lot more than just the talent, the great music, the great say packaging for the group, the right image, and the artistic side of things. Obviously, they have to be great and innovative in a way, but there is a big side of how bands and artists in general end up growing their following, as per se. There is obviously always management behind. There's a label behind it. There's always like people on the background, putting your work on different places, and then eventually getting you on the right tour, and then eventually getting you the right spot, the right festival, and then because of because of the art that you're making, people start following you, and then you raise your profile, you get a bigger following, and then eventually you're doing bigger shows. And how was that process from 2001, and then, like you said, between 2001 and 2003, were you guys just playing in the Netherlands, where the band was, like you said, had a hit on the radio, was on MTV, and then before going on the first European tour with Paradise Lost, and then the following of that, when was the moment that, do you recollect, when was the first time you guys did a headlining tour in Europe?
Yeah, that was with the following album. That was The Silent Force, that was released in 2004. And that was the first time that we did a European tour on our own. And obviously, the venues were much smaller than the ones we do now. But nevertheless, for us, it was the first time headlining Europe. And that was a huge deal. And, there are not that many famous Dutch bands. So the thing that we were doing back then, even though the venues weren't that big, it was still unique for a Dutch band to do a European tour and headline shows. So for us, it was already like, we have arrived, this is great. And even though that we weren't making that much money with it yet, because in the beginning, a lot of money was reinvested in
Absolutely.
in a new video, in stage props, because the thing that the band has always done is try to make it not only an audible experience but also a visual experience, because we have talked about Iron Maiden, but that's one of our examples, to bands like Rammstein. It's not, in that sense, it's not a miracle that they play in front of so many people. And I always say that those people aren't all heavy metal fans, but they like to be entertained. Also, a band like Ghost, they play, they get bigger and bigger and bigger. But what I'm trying to say is that even my aunt or my neighbor has a really great time during a Rammstein concert, even though that he or she doesn't like the music, but they will be entertained. And that's something that we've all also tried to achieve. And I'm not saying that we are just as big as Iron Maiden or Rammstein in that sense, but we've always tried to add a little bit more than just the music to the whole experience of one of our concerts.
At the time, do you remember, Ruud, if on the first European tour, like you said, I think I'm gonna go back to my previous question because I end up making several questions in the middle of just the one. But do you remember back on the first headlining tour, the band reinvesting money? But at that time, how was it for you personally? Were you being able to now? I can. When was the moment that you started to literally I can make now a decent living just out of the band? Did that happen during the first tour, or is it something that came along down the road?
Yeah, it came along down the road. I have always been teaching, and as a matter of fact, I still teach every Monday and Tuesday. Now it's more out of the love for the job, because right now we don't need any day jobs anymore for the time being. Not that we're millionaires, but for now, the income of just the playing is enough. I don't know how it will be in 10 years, but we'll cross that bridge then. But in the past, I've always been teaching 2 or 3 days a week. Also, to supplement my income of the band, but also because the music industry is that it's not a secure job. It can be over tomorrow, and that's why. And I had a good position. I had a good teaching position, which I didn't want to give up. And most important of all, I really liked it, because if I wouldn't have liked it, I wouldn't have done it, I think, because I really like teaching, and I still do like teaching. So for me, that was a perfect thing. And the thing is that that sometimes we don't tour for a year. And why would I need to sit on my couch for 7 days a week if I can teach 2 days and still have 5 days a week of Netflix time or whatever?
For sure. Do you think that that's something because I agree 100%. It just sounds like that you are very grounded and responsible to a certain extent. And some people could perhaps just get overexcited or overwhelmed with the fact that I will just do that, sit on my couch or go partying and just enjoy life.
Yeah.
But do you think this is something that comes perhaps from your upbringing, from family, or where would you, who would you, if anybody or anything, who would you give credit to the fact that do you understand literally, like you just said, there's no guarantees on this industry. Do you think it's something that was always with you, or maybe throughout
Yeah.
the years, and obviously the ups and downs of this industry that you've been on it for so many years now? What would
Yeah.
you attribute the fact that you understand and see it very clearly, just like you put it just a
Yeah.
minute ago?
Well, I think that the Dutch people are, as a group of people, pretty down to earth. I think, of course, there are exceptions because we all know the examples of the overnight successful people who buy a nice car and a big house and having to sell it 4 years later. We all know those. We all have examples of that. But I think that in general, as a people, the Dutch are pretty down to earth. And yeah, it's also my upbringing. My dad has worked in a factory for more than 40 years, so we never had a lot of money. We weren't poor or anything. There's nothing that how do you say that?
That you
I
missed
have
it.
any shortcomings or whatever
Mhm.
in that sense. But yeah, I think that I was being raised with some kind of responsibility for my, yeah, and also when I decided to try it out, to try to become a professional musician, to live with music, both my parents, they were a little bit apprehensive, a little bit hesitant, like, are you sure? Because it's very difficult, and it's very difficult to make a living. Shouldn't you have like a plan B or whatever? And after high school, I studied something else for a little bit, just to have a degree in something that I could fall back to. But I didn't finish that because I was sick of it and I wanted to make music. That's when I decided, okay, I'm gonna study at the conservatory. And of course, back then my parents were completely fine with that because they knew that I had a vision and they knew what I wanted to do with my life. Because before that time, I was already studying guitar every spare moment of my day. The weekends, the whole day, summer holidays, the whole summer holiday, and that's the only thing that I wanted to do back then.
Amazing. When was the first time? What was the first? What was the first like? Well, actually, instead of, I was going to ask when was it and what was the first like rock or metal concert that you've attended, and that I would like to know as well. But do you have a moment on your life that you listened to an album or you've listened to a song and that was something that you were like, oh my god, what is this? I need to learn what this is, and need to listen to more of it, and then eventually basically put you on the direction of where your life is at? Because I myself, I can remember when I was 10 years old and a friend just showed me this Iron Maiden record, and from that moment onwards my life just changed. And it's funny to think that, looking back in retrospective and thinking that if that day never happened, if I haven't listened to the song that I've listened on that particular day, I could have maybe have made a completely different, have taken a completely different path in life, because I most certainly don't come from a background where my parents were very supportive in terms of pursuing a career in music, because of obvious reasons, just like you mentioned. It's a very difficult one, and parents, especially, the generation before us, and then the generation before, a lot of people coming from, I have an European background. Even though I was born in Brazil, my background is totally European. My mom's side of the family is Spanish and my dad's side of the family is Italian, hence why I always had dual citizenship, and now I have triple citizenship: Brazilian, Italian, and British. But they were always very like, you have to choose what everybody normally would choose to have, what they had in mind as being a safe life: going to university, studying, I know, journalism or law, or going to medical school, because back then, back in the 50s, in the 60s and 70s, if you had a degree on those, it was almost guaranteed that you would become a successful professional on that field of work. But with all that in mind, do you recollect anything that you say, okay, that, when, that struck a chord on me and made me, persuade the things that I persuaded in life?
Yeah, definitely. But I have a question for you, just
Of course.
out of interest. Which album was it? Which Iron Maiden album?
It was a real live one, and it was Fear of the Dark live. And I even remember it was recorded. It was recorded in Helsinki, Finland. That version.
Okay.
It was that one, yeah. So Fear of the Dark was something that for me it was a game changer. I was listening at the time already a lot to Michael Jackson. It was a big thing for me. Michael Jackson, Guns N' Roses was just at the time that both Use Your Illusion albums were out, and obviously the Black Album, Metallica's Black Album.
To say that, yeah.
So that was the moment that I was literally 10, 11, and all of those things were like. And then obviously we had MTV, so then the grunge came, and it was a good time because music. You would just put on MTV, and you would go to record stores, you would listen to music, and then you would talk to your friends. And I remember like just recording cassettes at friends' place, and then taking back home, and then re-listening to them. But yeah, it was Iron Maiden, a real live one, and the song was Fear of the Dark.
Cool. For me, it was. I remember it vividly that I got this copied cassette tape from a friend of mine with the Life After Death album, and I put it in my cassette player, rewound the tape, and the first song was Run to the Hills, live, and that was like, holy, what the hell is this? This is great. Then I watched the Life After Death video. And that's when I knew for sure, okay, Mom, Dad, I don't want to play the keyboards anymore, because I was playing the keyboards back then, but with those one-finger arpeggiator thing, with some bossa nova rhythm in the background. Yeah, that wasn't exactly what I wanted to do. So I said, yeah, I want to quit keyboards and I want to start playing the electric guitar. And of course, my parents weren't that easily convinced, since my keyboard has been gathering dust in a corner of my room. So that took quite some convincing. But for my 14th birthday, I got this really El Cheapo electric guitar with a super tiny amp. But to me, that was the best and the greatest. And that's when it started. And the reason, the trigger that made me decide to become a professional and to start studying at the conservatory was we had this Headbangers Ball, MTV, with Vanessa Warwick. I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah.
And it was always very late at night, and I was almost falling asleep. And then Dream Theater's Take the Time video came on.
Yeah.
And that completely woke me up, especially with that middle part where the guitar and the keyboards play some unison, tricky, delicate thing. And I was like, oh, whoa, what is this? That was completely new. And that was also 92, I think. And, we were just talking about the grunge. That was something completely different from all the other stuff that MTV was playing. At that time, Alice in Chains and Soundgarden and Nirvana, and which is great. It's super awesome. But Dream Theater really stood out, and so I started to check them out. And there was pre-internet, so you had to go and look for some magazines or talk to people or that kind of stuff. And
it's crazy when you look back, isn't it? Because I still have it like files with magazine cuts, European magazine cuts that people used to send to me, with information about what was happening in the metal scene out here, and obviously at the time I was collecting bits of Iron Maiden, so I would get like pages from magazines where, I don't know, a band member gave an interview to whichever European magazine, and nowadays those things are so irrelevant, because everything is online, and I think there's so many great things that obviously technology brought us, and a lot of people have different opinions about it. I mean, for example, when it comes to a band or to music, my opinion, which fluctuates, it changes every now and then, but my opinion, it has been very steady when it comes to this particular matter. I think it became harder for bands to make it because nowadays you don't sell records anymore. So, and back in the day, you would get a record deal, whichever record deal that would have been, a good one or a bad one, but at least you would get some money to produce an album, and eventually, depending if you would go all the way back in the 80s, you would get a deal where you would even have money to pay your rent and just basically get yourself a kickstart on the music. And however, nowadays that simply doesn't happen. That's something that you really gotta be in a very, very lucky position and be working really hard for your own self to get into a similar deal to that, which is obviously it's going to be just a fraction of what it used to be. However, other people will say, no, I disagree. I think nowadays you have access to so much music, and you can get your music heard anytime by anyone online. And there's always those two sides of the coin, isn't it? And what do you think about that, Ruud? Do you think it's actually? I think it definitely it hasn't become easier, but you have like an opinion in regards of that. If you're starting a band today, I mean, how would you approach it?
I think it's much more difficult. I don't know actually, because I've never. Also back in the day, record companies would invest in a band. They would invest in the development of a band, and that just doesn't happen anymore. Back then, you could also get this, what's the English word? Voorschot. Money up front.
Oh yeah, an advance.
An advance, yeah, exactly, an advance. And of course, nowadays you can put your own music on Spotify yourself. I do it myself with my For All We Know album. So in that sense, it's easier. On the other hand, there is so much music. There are so many bands. It's ridiculous. And that has something to do with the fact that, especially in heavy metal, kids produce their own albums in their bedrooms, which sound sometimes extremely good. And back in the days, you had to rent a super expensive studio to get that vibe, and that's also something that I don't like that much about modern heavy metal, is that with all this software where you can make great drum sounds, it's awesome, but it sometimes sounds way too produced, which isn't. For that style of music, it's great, because then you can do it for yourself at home, and in that sense, it's easier to record your own music, and therefore there are so many bands, and that's maybe one of the reasons why it's more difficult these days, because it's so difficult to to stand out and to
stand out. Yeah.
That is. So I think that there are two ways to look at it. I don't know, yeah.
I think I generally think that common sense, it became harder. It became so much harder, and I see it every day. Like here in London, things changing constantly, and venues that a few years ago used to host gigs, they're closing down, and in order to build those very expensive flats that I don't know who's gonna buy them, because it's definitely not gonna be me. And it's very, very difficult. I remember like when I first moved to London, trying to put a band together, and it hasn't been an easy thing to do here. And back in Brazil, for as funny as it sounds, there's so many musicians there. I mean, like I know so many like guitarists and drummers and singers and bass players. I mean, I could put a great kick-ass band together like with the blink of an eye. And here in London, you would think, oh my God, there must be like shitloads of musicians around willing to put together a rock or a metal band, and it just doesn't, and it
Well,
feels, and it's quite frustrating to a certain extent, because this country has produced so many of the greatest, if not like, well, the huge majority of the greatest, when you look back, from
yeah,
rock to heavy metal. I mean,
yeah,
most of the things came from England,
yeah.
and influenced every like our generation, and it's something that will definitely be and gonna stand out forever when it comes to rock and metal music, and that's a part of the culture as well. And unfortunately, this country doesn't look very much well after that, I must say. But that's a
Yeah.
completely different matter. In the Netherlands, do you guys have like is there a lot of like bands that perhaps are like making a very good living by being, for example, big in the Netherlands, and maybe nobody knows them across the border?
Yeah, there are quite some bands who do stadiums here, and
Wow.
no one has heard of them. South of Brussels,
Mm-hmm.
maybe.
Mm-hmm. That's really interesting, because I remember working with Jonathan, the singer of Eagle Kill Talent. He used to have a rock band in Brazil that went, it was huge, like really, really big in the early 2000s. Like number one single on the radio constantly, like playing shows for like 10,000 people. Like, I mean, crazy stuff, really crazy stuff. And then in Brazil, you would go a couple of states above us, which would be the same distance as probably going from London to Amsterdam, to a different country here in Europe. You would say it's a different country here, but in Brazil, because of the size of the country, it's a different state.
Hmm.
And people wouldn't know anything about it. And I can totally see those things happening. Like, you go to the Netherlands, or you go to France, or you go to Italy. There must be acts and artists that are possibly huge, and maybe even pop stars in their own country, but nobody heard of them outside abroad.
Yeah, it is interesting. It is really funny, and I guess that as an artist, it's pretty cool because if you are sick and tired of being recognized everywhere, you can just go to another country and you're just an ordinary Joe.
That's absolutely true. Yeah. How is that for you? Do you do well with that, or how is that for you back home? Do you go like to the off license next door buying milk and bread, and people, oh, hello, mate, I
No,
recognize you.
man, I'm just a guitar player. Everyone only has attention for the female singer. I remember that there was this one moment back in my old house where I used to live, it's like 15 years ago, when we were really mainstream here on the radio, that I came home one day and my neighbor, she came out of her house and she said, yeah, I don't know if you're interested to know, or if you should know, but there were two young girls here today and they were taking pictures from inside, through your letterbox,
Oh,
from
wow.
inside your hallway. It's like, that is weird. I never experienced anything like that. But nah, that kind of stuff almost never happens, fortunately, because yeah, that's not why I started making music.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Do you follow yourself, Ruth, any morning routines?
Yes, I do. As a matter of fact, I started a journal a couple of months ago, and I have this habit tracker in it. And one of the things that I tend to do is I want to be up by 9 if I have a day off, because I can be pretty disciplined, but not when it comes to getting up early. In that sense, I can be super lazy. So I want to be up by 9, which could be 8 or 8:30 or 9 o'clock, and I meditate. I try to meditate. No, I don't try. I do it. Do or do not. There is no try, as Yoda said, as we all know. Anyways, but I meditate for 20 minutes, and then I
How do you
go.
meditate? Do you just sit quietly, or do you listen to some music? What is that?
No, I do Zen meditation. So that's sitting quietly and focusing on your breathing and counting your exhales and you know, and people always say, oh, meditate, yeah, I should meditate. Oh, it would be so great to think of nothing. But that's a myth. That's impossible. People cannot think of nothing, because once you start thinking, oh yeah, I shouldn't think of anything, then you're thinking already.
Exactly. Good point.
And meditation is pretty simple, which doesn't mean that it's easy. But for me, it helps in my focus the rest of the day, and I tend to be more focused, and I tend to sleep a bit better, because I used to be a pretty bad sleeper, and so that helps.
Do you do it in the evening as well, before going to bed?
I should, but usually it's too late when I finish my video game, or when I finish
exactly
the last Black Mirror episode on Netflix or whatever, and then I'm too sleepy, and I think, fuck it, I'm gonna do that tomorrow. And you know what they say, that you should meditate once a day, except when you're extremely busy. That's when you should meditate twice a day.
Okay.
As a paradox. Yeah, as a paradox.
Yeah. When it comes to meditation, I mean, you hear so many different fronts and so many different approaches, and I myself, I started meditating on a regular basis, like for the last year and a half, I think it has been,
mm-hmm.
And it's just something that you obviously always want to kind of in life, basically, you always kind of expect something, right? You're always expecting something, and I think a lot of people approach meditation expecting something to change on their lives, and when they realize that nothing is actually really changing, and the changes that happen are so subtle that you really have to be aware and really pay attention on your mind and on yourself to really to really note that. But I do sense that just by having that 10, 15, 20 minute moment for yourself, where you at least are trying to focus on your breathing and quieten your mind somehow, because just like you said, you can't not think, but it's good to just be aware that when you start thinking, if you can somehow try and bring back yourself to the present moment, and not observe and let your mind go back and forth, but at least you're observant of the fact that your mind is going out there again, and you're just trying to focus again on your breathing and being present. I think that there's a lot of benefits, obviously, when it comes to blood pressure and physical things. There's a lot to say about it.
Yeah, and even you force yourself to sit down for 20 minutes, because we all have busy lives. We run from one end to the other, and it's good to just sit down for 20 minutes. And one of the things that I have noticed is that when I go teaching, I need to go to Eindhoven, which is like a 20-minute train ride from here, and I feel that I am better focused when I read my book in the morning and in the afternoon on my way back, that I don't get distracted by other people talking that much. And that was one of the things that I thought, maybe that's one of the things that came out in meditation. There's this really good title of a book that I just finished. It's by Sam Harris, and the title of it is 10% Happier. And maybe that's that, because I heard you say that people expect that it's like a 180-degree difference in their life, but actually it's not. There's not a huge difference, but a little bit of a difference.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, Ruud, so it's 10% Happier by Sam Harris, did you say?
Sam Harris, yeah, and he's also in that minimalism documentary that I told you about in the beginning of this interview, or this conversation.
Mm-hmm.
There's a funny story. Can I tell you a funny story?
Please, by all means.
So I watched that minimalism documentary, and I thought, I'm going to get rid of that. I'm going to get rid of that. Awesome. Hey, there were some books in some authors of books in the documentary. So I ordered them, which is completely not minimalistic in a sense. But the weirdest thing was that the book Minimalism by those two guys, Joshua Fields Milburn and Ryan Nicodemus, they are featured mostly in that documentary. I ordered it and it didn't arrive the next day. So 2 days later, I called the store and I said, "Yeah, those books haven't arrived. I'm gonna send them to you again." Sure. 15 minutes after I hung up the phone, I heard my doormat and those two books were on the floor, and I was like, that's weird. That's really quick. So those were the initial books, my initial order, and the next day those same books arrived again. So I was holding 2 books of minimalism. So yeah, that was a bit ironic.
That's funny, but that's kind of like as well the I think that we live in such a everything is so fast these days. We live in such a crazy time that sometimes we ourselves don't even realize how crazy it is. When you put into perspective, thousands and thousands and thousands of years of evolution, and just literally for the last 20 years, 25 years, technology has been like exploding. Well, internet, it literally, like when I was going to school, I could never imagine that we would be doing exactly what we're doing right now, and this is like 20 years ago, and obviously, you see people talking more and more about people getting addicted to their mobile phones and social media, and everybody being so like disconnected from each other, not knowing your neighbors anymore. And people don't go out to meet people out in the park. They go on a dating app on their phones. And I mean, I think it's interesting times, but things are happening so fast that sometimes I fear that we might get a little bit too ahead of our game if we don't literally just kind of like start to really pay attention and take a little break from all of those things and trying to be more observant of how do we react to those things. I mean, I myself, I try to basically, at night, I sleep basically with my phone on airplane mode and the Wi-Fi off. And I got my parents the other day saying, "Oh, but if an emergency happens," well, if an emergency happens in the middle of the night with somebody that is across the ocean, it's not going to be 2, 3, or 4 hours difference till I actually get up, and that's going to make a change to anything, really. So unless if it's something that you're really expecting, sometimes different circumstances, but on a regular basis, I don't need to have those frequencies inside of my room. And then waking up in the morning, first thing, what do? Your alarm goes off, normally goes off from your mobile. And then what do? You open your eyes, you grab your mobile, and you start checking stuff. And next thing you know, you've spent 20 minutes or 25 minutes or 30 minutes just scrolling up and down. And I can tell straight away that my brain, if I do that, get a little bit heated up straight away. If I don't do that, if I just get up, go to the loo, come back and do my meditation, then I go to the kitchen to make my breakfast, which is kind of like my routine basically now. That's when I get my phone and then I check things. But then I have a sense of that I am a bit more calm, a bit more present, and then I can obviously deal with that because that's just part of our lives nowadays. There's no way around it. Everything is on your phone. Your bank card is on your phone. Your bank is on your phone. Your friends are on your phone. Your family is on your phone. Work is on. Everything is there. But it's unfortunate because I don't see it a lot of this kind of you kind of have to be interested. It's not something that comes to you, like diet, for example. There's so much nowadays of people talking about veganism and vegetarians and the causes of climate change and all of those things. But I still feel that if you don't have an interest for it, those things won't come to you. And which brings on the question, like, do you have to follow a specific diet, or do you have any anything that you want to say about that, or what's your approach to it?
Well, I'm not a vegetarian, but since 2 years I've been really more conscious about what I eat meat-wise, because here in the Netherlands there was this huge scandal about this slaughterhouse that didn't follow the rules at all, and there was this undercover guy, this employee, but he was actually undercover working for this other organization, and he filmed a lot, how things went down there. And I remember talking to a sports friend of mine, and he said, "Oh man, I almost turned vegetarian today." I said, "Why is that?" Well, he told me about that video, and the court had closed that slaughterhouse down, but 2 or 3 weeks later it was opened again. So those same videos, they started popping up on my Facebook and all over on my timeline, and that's when I remembered, oh yeah, that's the video that he was telling me about. So I forced myself to watch it, and yeah, the things that I saw there, that was, man, I of course I know that kind of stuff happens, but yeah, you tend to close your eyes for it, It's but when I saw it happening on my screen, that was wow. That's when I decided to, and that's when I didn't eat meat for 6 months or something. But now I have been a little bit more flexible with it. I never cook meat myself anymore. I maybe eat meat once or twice a month now, which is good.
That's great. That's really, really good.
Yeah, and for the rest, no, I like beer.
Me too. We're gonna get into that for sure. But before we go and talk about that, I think I find it really amazing what you just said, because I truly believe. I myself, I watched. Here's a documentary for you if you haven't watched it. What the Health is on Netflix as well. It's about the meat industry, but it's not really focused on slaughterhouses or anything gore like that. It's more about showing that basically, all of those organizations, say British Heart Foundation, all of those organizations that, are supposedly tackling the health subjects of life for us and delivering what supposedly are the right messages when it comes to diet and what's good for you as a human being, how everything is rigged, from even these college institutions, why doctors teach you specifically certain things, and they don't teach you other things. Like when you go to the doctor, every time that you have an illness, you go to the doctor. Doctors don't say, okay, but wait a minute. Okay, you've got a headache, you've got a stomach ache, okay, but before I give you those pills, let me just do an analysis of your composition of your body, because you might be lacking a specific nutrient that is very specific to you. And you might have a great diet, but you might be lacking on a nutrient that might influence your brain, that might influence your digestive system, and all of those things, the biohacking of ourselves. I think it's totally overseen, because there's obviously a massive industry, one of the biggest in the world, the pharmaceutical industry, that has no interest on letting people know that they can heal themselves just by drinking plenty of water and having a very healthy diet. And even if you have a very healthy diet, the soil is so compromised these days that the fruit and the vegetables growing on that soil are already 40, 50, sometimes 60% less nutrient dense than they used to be. So by the point that they actually come to your plate, they are just another tomato. It's not like the fruit that was originally in the past, nutrient wise. And those things are so complex, because in school people don't teach you that. You go to university, people don't talk about that. The fact that, for example, so like I was saying, after watching this documentary, I decided to just step away from it completely. and I did for a while. Fish for me was always difficult because I love sushi, and I had this idea that most people have that, oh, but fish is not too much of a problem for the whole scenario, for the whole climate change, for the whole soil destruction, and etc. Because obviously there's no soil involved with fish. That's what people tend to think, but as a matter of fact, it's the oceans have been completely depleted as we speak because we've been consuming all of the fish that we can possibly get our hands on. But the main factor, it's obviously beef. Beef is 80 to 85%, I think, the cause of all of the basically all of the pollution that we get on air these days, and that is more just the production of beef. When I say beef, I'm talking about the whole everything that involves for that piece of meat to come to sit
Yeah.
on our plate, the production of it, how we feed the cows, everything. All of the process consumes more and pollutes more than all of the public transport in the world combined, and that means all the aeroplanes, all the cars, all the motorcycles, all ships, everything. And that's
Mm.
absolutely crazy. So I decided to step away from it. Anyway, I
Mm.
didn't succeed it fully because then you start seeing the other side of it. How did we as human beings evolved? How did we get here? How our brains got to the size that they are nowadays? And we ate meat for
Yeah.
generations. We used to go out there and hunt for a meat.
Yeah.
That was one of the main things that we had on as a food staple for centuries, for thousands and thousands and centuries, for thousands of years, not even centuries, for thousands of years.
Mm. Mm.
And it is part of a healthy diet. But we got to a point that we just consume that morning, lunch, and dinner,
Yeah. Yeah. True.
and
True.
that's too much. But then
Mm.
the approach that you are having now, I am not. I don't have that because I literally I don't eat beef. I probably eat beef these days maybe twice, 3 times a year, and it will be on very specific occasions. But regardless of that, I do think that the healthy approach is just exactly what you do twice a month, like it used to be.
Yeah.
Celebration, you make a celebration out of it. You're gonna have a family gathering or something nice is happening, or you go into a restaurant that you really like. You add that as something as I say, that is like the cherry on the cake on a very special moment, and not something that you just do it on a daily basis.
Yeah. Yeah. True. Yeah. I agree.
That's really cool. I mean, I think that's amazing. But then, obviously, if you go and I have lots of vegan friends, and if you speak to them like that, they tend to come to you and say that you are a hypocrite, that you are this and you're that, and you kind of just have to, understand and follow your own beliefs, and your own beliefs are always normally based on the information. As much information that you can get, then you can make better decisions in life, and this would be one of them, right?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, veganism. That I wouldn't be able to do that.
What would you even be doing? What was that?
Veganism.
Ah, right, yeah.
I just like a pizza with nice cheese on it.
But you know what? There's some amazing pizzas nowadays, vegan. I live in Camden in northwest London, and I just went to this pizzeria the other day called Purezza, and my goodness, I swear to you that it's on the top 3 of the best pizzas I've ever had in my life, and it's 100% vegan. Even the dessert pizza, they do a chocolate ice cream dessert pizza, which is delicious. Completely vegan. I was astonished by how amazing it was. Whenever you're in London, I'll take you there, Ruud. So
Yeah,
good.
that's a deal. That's a deal.
So what are the things that occupy your mind more than other people?
Ooh, that's a deep
That's
question.
an interesting one.
Wow, that's the first time I got this one.
Hmm.
What occupies my mind more than other people or normal people?
But that depends. That opens up another question. what are and who are the normal ones and who are not the normal ones?
Yeah,
I'm.
that's a whole different. That's a whole different question indeed.
Are we both normal or are we not both normal?
I don't think so. Not to the normal standards that we have here, at least not in the Netherlands. Well, okay, that's more. Well, I not think. Yeah, it depends on the moment, I guess, or the.
Maybe video game. Maybe you wake up in the morning thinking about playing video games, but then
Mm, no,
something
not that.
like that, something that you think, this is kind of like always on my mind for some reason.
Wow.
Well, if you can't think of anything, let's leave that for later. It might come to
Yeah,
you at
but
some
that's a
point.
very interesting question. Worst case scenario, I'll be thinking about this question tonight when I'm in bed in the tour bus because we're
Good.
leaving for Switzerland this evening.
Hmm.
We have some festivals this weekend, so that's some food for thought this weekend.
Nice. What do you do to unwind? What's the perfect lazy day on your books? Like today is the day that you take in the day for yourself. You don't want to do anything but be absolutely lazy and just rest up. What would you do?
I think I would either read a book, watch a movie, or play a video game, or as weird as it sounds, just do some noodling on my guitar, just
Hmm.
some guitar playing without any expectation out of it, without any purpose of recording or writing or whatever. But it's probably mainly watching a movie or reading a book or going out for a walk.
Okay, but do you that's interesting. Let me just tap into this one. Do you like, for example, say now that festival season, you guys playing on the weekends and then you're back home during the week, I presume.
Yes.
Do you what do you follow like a daily practice routine to keep up with the technique in order to perform on those shows because the songs can be quite technical, or you don't follow any of that, or do you have like do you follow a specific routine in terms of specific techniques? Is there anything like that that you do?
No, I should. I should. I feel guilty now again thinking about it. Well, no, the thing is that within Temptations music isn't that technically challenging. There are some challenging things in it, some solo stuff, which I should practice maybe a little bit more. But no, and that's always one of my resolutions that I think now I need to, even if it's just half an hour a day, that makes such a huge difference. But yeah, we just said it already. We're all so busy, and sometimes sometimes I'm busy with nothing. That then it's evening all of a sudden, and I think, whoa, I've been busy all day, but what have I been doing? And
Mm-hmm.
then it's usually a chore here, going to the grocery store, going to the post office, then my yard a little bit, doing some laundry,
Mm-hmm.
and that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Do you tend to cook for yourself at home?
Yes. Yes. Pretty much every day.
Amazing, amazing. What do you normally cook? Do you have anything like, for example, breakfast? We were talking about morning routine earlier on, and somehow our conversations that we tend to kind of like jump into different subjects, which is really cool. But then you're talking about meditation, and then do you normally go and make yourself breakfast, or do you skip breakfast in the morning? Or and if you do
Well,
breakfast,
yeah,
what?
I eat breakfast. Yeah, I usually eat those granola things with goat milk and some blueberries in it.
Mm-hmm.
And lately, I've been preparing myself. Yeah, you have that in London probably as well. The poke bowl. Have you heard of
Mm-hmm.
that? It's this
Yeah.
Hawaiian. This Hawaiian. I call it lazy sushi since it's
Yeah.
pretty much sushi ingredients. Pretty much. That's what I've been preparing for myself,
Nice.
like almost 3 days a week, and I'm almost getting sick of it already because I've been eating it. Whenever I discover a new dish that I'm making, I tend to overdo it, and
Mm-hmm.
with the result that I'm sick of it within a month. So
and
that's the thing.
And on the road, do you manage to keep up with like eating well and eating healthy, or do you sometimes let yourself just indulge a little bit more? Because obviously, there's always like big caterings and hotels. They have those nice breakfasts and festivals. They have
Yeah,
like big
true.
caterings with lots of healthy stuff, but there's a lot of like sweets and cakes and this and that.
Well, that's one of the things that and we have toured together. So then that we, especially in Europe, on our own shows, we have our own catering. We have two or three cooks, I think, and they make three dishes every day: meat, fish, and vegetarian, which is awesome. The desserts are really awesome as well, but I tend to stay away from them, not because I don't I don't think I deserve or that I'm getting fat or whatever, but I've never been that much of a dessert kind of person. um, but and catering wise, hospitality wise, we got rid of all the candy stuff.
Oh wow, that's nice.
You recognize it. It's not, you're not snacking, you're not eating candy because you are in a mood for that, but because you are bored. That's why you start eating. That's
Hmm.
why you grab this bag of chips and you start eating, and that's when you get that chocolate bar and you start eating, because you're bored. You don't have anything to do in those dressing rooms, because people always think that it's one huge party with naked ladies and drugs and but you can confirm this. It's pretty boring backstage and in the dressing rooms. So you need to occupy yourself with something else than food. And I must say that sometimes I think that we're taking it a little bit too far, because some of us are a little bit those obnoxious health freaks until they started drinking, and that's when all hell breaks loose, of course. But and then you have the after show pizza. That's something that I can never resist, because you just performed for 1.5 hours and you burned some calories, and you have been drinking a little bit of beer, because it has been proven that alcohol makes you a bit more peckish than usual. And
Yeah.
when you get off stage and the door of the dressing room opens and there's this stack of super hot, nice, fresh pizzas, yeah, and then
Amazing. Yeah.
great. That's great.
It is great. It is great. Oh, after show pizzas are always so good. I love it.
And that's the best. And I think fuck it, you just need to enjoy life.
Absolutely. You
That's
gotta allow
important.
yourself to do that. And
Yeah.
yeah, totally. Do you exercise regularly? Do you do any form of exercise yourself?
Yeah, I do a Krav Maga and boxing and kickboxing. As a matter of fact, I think before we're leaving, I think I'm gonna do a kickbox training tonight.
Oh, nice.
That's
That's
fun. And I know that you are a runner.
mm-hmm.
You run a lot, and
Hmm.
I hate it. And I have tried it many, many, many times, because there was a while that I thought that that I thought that I had to run like once or twice a week, and I did it, but I was miserable every time. And after a while, I was like, yeah, fuck it, I'm not gonna do it anymore.
Do you know
But
what? I think running is a very interesting one because it's not an easy thing. It's definitely going from the couch to lacing up and going out there and running. It's definitely not something very easy to get into it. And you can do it very in a very wrong way. You can just basically start running and then you start too fast and then you go too far and then you get injured, and then all of those things can play a massive role
Mhm.
on how you will see the sport in itself. But I truly believe as well that with the right information, with the right maybe partner or maybe even the right coach, and taking on baby steps and allowing yourself to, okay, I'm going to spare 3 times a week 20 to 25 minutes to go on a jog, not on a run. I'm going to walk for a minute, jog for 2 minutes, walk for a minute, jog for 2 minutes, repeat that 10 times, 3 times a week. And then you will see the benefits. It's kind of like meditation. At the beginning you sit there quietly and you're like, why am I doing this? I'm wasting my time. But you compromise. You say, no, I'm going to give it a go and I'm going to do it day after day after day. And it gets to a point that you're like, oh, okay, I can see where this is going. Okay, I can taste the flavors of this thing. And I think running has a lot of that. Like, I have, like, for example, Kiko Lorero, a good friend of mine. He used to be a guy many years ago that used to say the same thing, that he couldn't run because he always had a problem with his knee. That was his excuse, right? Problem with his knee. And many times on tour, we would go on jogs and he would go, oh, my knee hurts. Anyway, he followed a very simple program that I gave him years ago, and then eventually he was doing, regular runs. And then I think it was last year when Megadeth was touring America. I was there with him, and we did a few runs. And then there was one day that he was always like, "Oh, I can't do more than 10Ks," and I'm like, who says that? They said, no, I can't do it. But regardless, 10K is already a pretty good distance for someone that, was not used to running at all. And I was like, no, we can do that. And then just on this leisurely run, I think it was New York, we were in Central Park, and we ended up doing 12K. And he was like, well, I didn't even notice that. And I was like, well, because we were not taking it too seriously. We were just chatting and going on this leisurely jog. There's no, we're not thinking about speed. We're not thinking about distance. We're just enjoying ourselves. And anyway, long story short, a few weeks after that, he messaged me. He's elsewhere in America. He's like, mate, I just did 21K on my own. Basically a half marathon, right? Pain-free, not feeling anything. And so yeah, maybe that's something that I'll try and convince you to do at some point, Ruud. A bit of a jogging here, especially because when you do go for a jog and then you have a nice craft beer waiting for you at the end of it. Oh my goodness!
And a vegan pizza.
And a vegan pizza.
I feel next time I'm in London, I'm gonna go for a run or a jog. And then a vegan pizza, and then some beer.
There you go.
Beer.
So, which brings into question, you like your beer, do you?
Yeah, man, I really do.
Do you like? But do you drink like a normal beer, or are you a bit of a? I don't like using the word beer snob, because people tend to me sometimes when they don't know me that well, and they say you're a beer snob. It's not being a beer snob. It's just like when you
just know what you like.
Exactly, yeah. And it's like it's the same with food. If you know that the food next door is better quality, it's better sourced. You're gonna go for that if you can afford it, right? And I myself, I love craft beer. I've been like, my running club has basically I'm the captain of the Mikkeller running club, and Mikkeller is a Danish craft brewery, producing some of the most amazing beers that I have ever had in my entire life. And so through them, and then doing the running club here in London, I end up getting involved and meeting so many brewers from all over the world, from the best craft breweries from America, from South America, from Europe, and my goodness, when you get into this world, it becomes kind of like nowadays not so much, but like I remember like 3 years ago, you just want to kind of like. I started a collection of beers basically at home, because there's lots of styles of beers that are styles of beer that are good aging, like you get like the beers, lambics from Belgium, those beers are amazing beer. Yeah. In the south of Brussels you have Cantillon and Trefontainen, which are like holy grail for beer enthusiasts. Yeah. And those beers, if you buy those bottles and you keep them in your cellar for a couple of years, they become vintage bottles. If you keep them for like 5-10 years, they become priceless, and it's delicious. It's just like I don't know, it becomes kind of like and you drink less as well, I guess, because the ABV of those beers tend to be slightly higher than the standard beer.
From Sweden. Unless you're from Sweden, because Stefan, our Swedish guitar player, he drinks these these fine beers, these pretty heavy beers. He drinks them just as lager, chunks them down, and yeah. But I'm sorry. Continue.
No, no, that's okay. Yeah, just do you have any preference? Is there any a style of beer that you really like?
Well, it depends on the season. In the wintertime, I really like the dark beers, the double beers from usually Belgium or from La Trappe. That's it used to be one of the seven Trappist beers. There are more Trappist beers
Hmm.
nowadays, I believe, but there were six in Belgium and one in the Netherlands, and that one in the Netherlands is like a 15-minute bicycle ride from my home.
Oh
So you
wow.
can you can imagine where I usually spend my free Sundays. That's one of my favorites. And in summertime, I'm more into wheat beers or IPA beers.
Amazing. That's really, really cool. I'm gonna have to I'm gonna have to introduce to you Mikkeller beers at some point.
Yeah, I don't know them. I
It's
like the fact that there are so many microbreweries as well. There's this place just because I live like 5 kilometers from the Belgian border. I live in the total south of the Netherlands, and there's this. Yeah, it's literally translated into beer shed, and they have I don't know how many different beers that they sell on a bottle, but they have this huge selection of all these microbreweries from Netherlands, Sweden, Finland, all over the world, pretty much all over Europe.
mhm.
So maybe they have that Danish beer as well. I don't know. Should check
Yeah,
it out.
probably. Yeah, those places they tend to have like when it's a big craft beer shop, and this one that you just described sounds like one of those. They do have it, and so if you ever stop by, just ask them for Mikkeller because it's really, really, really fantastic.
Okay.
Um, Rude. So kind of starting to gonna try and start to wrap up this amazing conversation I'm having with you. I'm gonna shoot you some roller coaster questions, which are basically questions that I make to all of the guests of the show. So
Okay.
the first one would be, what's your spiritual practice, if any at all? Are you spiritual at all?
Yeah, I am. I am. I am pretty spiritual. I've been, yes, the white light. That's something that I've been dipping my toes in a little bit. I've been reading a lot of books on self help and on spirituality, and the thing is that wow, something is happening over there.
Yeah,
That was siren, wasn't it?
where I
I hope.
am, I'm very close to the National Hospital here up north
Ah,
in northwest London. So there's always ambulances passing by where I live, which is yeah. Some people might get distressed with that, but it's just a normal thing.
okay. Yeah, the only thing is that some people think that you are completely flaky once you start talking about that kind of stuff. So, yeah, I almost never do.
Mm. Well, I really like the subject because I generally I come from a very religious family. I'm Catholic myself,
Yeah, me.
and my parents are very religious, both of them, and I generally I changed myself since I moved to England. I started to see a different side of the coin. I'm not the kind of person that believes that there is a guy sitting up there in the skies, in the heavens, judging the good and the bad and blah blah blah. But I am very spiritual. I do believe that there is so much more than the eye can see, so much more that we can basically perceive. I think there's more than just the frequencies that we are made of, and in the
Mhm.
combination of
Yeah.
atoms and things that we are made of, and the things that we touch are made of. I think there's so much more than that, and I do follow kind of like it's not that I follow. I have my own way of, thanking the universe and asking things to the universe and just connecting to those frequencies.
Mhm.
I think the more positive you are, the more positive, the more you smile to life. I know it sounds a bit cliche, but the more you smile to life, I think life smiles back at you, and it could be on small things, on just wishing someone well, like someone coming to drop the mail to you in your house, and the person is in a rush and doesn't have time, and maybe is having a bad day or doing a job that the person hates doing. But then thank you very much. I wish you well, and you send that energy out,
Yeah.
and somehow that might. I truly believe that those energies, they affect people, and on this particular case, when it comes to sharing positiveness in a very positive way, and obviously that the opposite is true as well. If you're a negative person, if you wish people bad things, those will affect people, but ultimately will affect you because you will attract those things towards
Yeah.
your life. So yeah, I believe that there is so much more than the eye can see.
Yeah. Same here. I agree.
Amazing. Um, this is another interesting one. What would someone who doesn't like you say about you?
Sometimes I hear that I can be arrogant, but that is absolutely not something. Yeah, of course, no, well, I guess that I would confess if I would think that I'm arrogant, but I know that I can be sometimes too deep in my own thoughts, so that if someone sees me and he waves at me, I don't even see it. But that person might think that, oh, he's just ignoring me, he's arrogant. Or when I'm concentrating, I can look a bit. My face can be a little bit cranky looking, but that's not. I'm not cranky. I'm just concentrated, and apparently that's how my face sits most comfortably on my skull, I guess.
Fair enough. What's your view about money?
um, that's a very interesting one as well. Um, I think that you know it's too easy to say that money is not important because money is important up to a certain degree. I always told myself when I decided to try to become a professional musician that I never want to lie awake over money issues. And if that would start to be the case, that's when I would change my profession and go for a little bit more security. Because I don't like to lie awake at night because I have money problems. Fortunately, that has never happened. Which I'm not saying that I'm rich or anything, but I'm comfortable. So in that sense, I think that money is not important because I have enough to live a comfortable life. Yet it has been proven that you need a certain amount of money to be comfortable, and everything that you have more than that doesn't add to your happiness or anything. So I don't know if that answers your question. It were some
It
random
does. It
thoughts,
does.
maybe.
It does. Very good. The last point you just mentioned about um, having enough money to be comfortable more than at this threshold, it doesn't add up. I agree with that because people. It's interesting how we all see money, and like you said, money is it's just the society, it's just the world we live in, it's just how we've been brought into this. We didn't have a say on this, but this is how the world we are is run by, and we depend on that. And then obviously, I agree 100% with everything you just said. Um, but I do believe as well that if you have too much, the more money that you have, or even the more money you're making on your life, the more responsibility you have, the less time you're likely to have for other things, to perhaps, practice some sports, to maybe if you have family and kids, to be with your family and your kids, to, less time do you have for yourself. And that's something that nowadays is just crazy. Less and less people have time for themselves. So we live in a time that time is so precious to everybody because we just don't have time for anything. The time that we have, we're always working because it's basically, it's this crazy machine that we're constantly in. You need time, so you need time for yourself, but you can't have it because you need to work to make money to pay for the bills to keep it. It's just this crazy cycle. But definitely having too much money. I always dream about winning the lottery, but I'm not entirely sure if that would make me, if that would be a great thing, like winning on the Euro Millions, 100 million pounds.
But those kind of prizes, they piss me off, because sometimes we have over here the jackpot, which is like 43 million euros or whatever. And I'm thinking, it doesn't matter if you win 10 million or 43 million. Your life is going to be so completely different. Why not make 43 people happy with 1 million, or 430 people happy with 100,000 euros? 100,000 euros, that's for most people the perfect price, because that's still enough money that you can wrap your head around. Your life won't change that drastically, I think. Maybe you can pay off your debts, or you can maybe buy a new car if you need one. Maybe you can take that long, that world trip that you have been wishing for, and maybe set some money aside for your children, and then you have a comfortable life. But why would you need 43 million euros? And also that has been proven, because I've been reading a lot about that kind of stuff. That has been proven that a lot of those lottery winners end up unhappy with that, because their life changes like 180 degrees.
Honestly, I'm with you, and I think the division that you made with the money, I think, it's exactly just that. It's so precise, everything that you just said. I agree 100%. But with all that in mind, I mean, I generally wouldn't mind if my ticket tonight win the prize. So
I wouldn't say no to it either, but
but I get your point. I do get your point. Absolutely. What kind of food? Well, you kind of like in a way answer that, but let me see if there's more into it. What kind of food do you go for when you need of a treat? Say you want to treat yourself. Tonight's the night that you're gonna take the piss and you're gonna order whatever. Is there anything specific that you really like, and it's maybe not even healthy, that you're like, you know what, I can get away sometimes with this?
And that's one of those things that, me trying to be a vegetarian, that's one of those things when all those things go overboard, when all those, good how do you say that? Good resolutions go overboard. And that's what we have here in the Netherlands. It's called a kapsalon. And kapsalon is a literal translation for barber shop. And it's shawarma based, kebab, that kind of thing, and it's with French fries and kebab on top of it, and then some lettuce and some tomatoes, a little bit of healthy stuff, and then cheese, and that goes into the oven, and then some garlic sauce and some spicy sauce on top of it, and man, that's the perfect food for when you're a little bit tipsy. If you know what I mean.
Sounds amazing, and it sounds amazing. I think I've never had that.
Super junk food, but once in a while that can be, oh man, that's the best.
Very nice, very nice. What are you reading at the moment? You might be reading more than one book, but if so, what are you reading at the moment?
I'm just gonna get it. It's I'm reading the book Letting Go of the Person You Used to Be by Lama Surya Das. It's from the author of Awakening the Buddha Within, and it's I only read like 6 pages so far, but it's about it says here on the book of lessons on change, loss, and spiritual transformation. So that's what I've been reading, and I'm reading The Happiness Project by what's her name? Gretchen Rubin, I think. What's her name? Yep. Yeah, so a little bit into the self-help things.
Yeah, I don't. You know what? I don't like the way that those books are described as self-help, because self-help sounds like, oh, I'm in need of help. Do you know what I mean? I am facing those issues. It can be true for a lot of people, but in many ways, I think those books they all share, because I really like self-help books as well myself, and I think that they just have like good content, positive content. You know, it might not be exactly your cup of tea, the message of a specific book, but they are all coming from a very positive place, aren't they?
Yeah, true.
And
Yeah, you are right. It implies that you need help, but it's not so much that, I've been struggling with a depression like 2 years ago, and maybe that's why I'm still a little bit into this corner of the bookstore, if you know what I mean. But yeah, this book is how many pages? 220 pages, and maybe if you compress all the things that are useful for you, maybe it's like 5 pages that are useful for you. But on the other hand, even if you take just 1 or 2 things out of each book, which adds a little bit to your life, then I think that it's a good revenue of reading it.
Exactly. Ruud, my friend, this has been great. My goodness, I mean,
very fun conversation. Thank you so much.
Beautiful conversation, amazing. I mean, funny how we toured for like a month last year in Europe, but then touring people, it's just like you said, it can be so boring backstage, but that's for the musicians, because people working behind the musicians are always busy running around, doing things, and for the artists it can be a little bit boring. But it's funny because people have this idea that it's all about sex, drugs, and rock and roll, and it actually can be the extreme opposite of that. Backstage. I always find that I'm sure you do get that as well, because I have obviously a big chunk of friends that are musicians and artists and work in different parts of the artistic industry, not necessarily music or even rock. But then there's another bunch of friends that have no idea of this world. They've never been in a band, they never played any instruments, they never toured, and then you come to them and they're like, oh my god, so yeah, you're going on tour, so that's going to be super much fun, right? You're going to be drinking beers every day and going crazy every day. I'm like, mate, do you have no understanding of what I do? I don't even have one single beer, during it is work on my particular job role, as tour manager. And people have a completely different view about that, which is really interesting, and I have that sense that people never really believe me, when I say that there's no craziness happening. Trust me.
Yeah, true. And then this new documentary or this new movie, The Dirt by Motley Crue, is being released on Netflix, and everyone watches it. And then all the work that we have been trying to do to convince people that it's absolutely not the case, then this movie comes out and everybody's like, see, you've
exactly.
been lying. It is like this. No, man, there was 80s. That just doesn't happen anymore.
It doesn't happen anymore. Even if you wanted to, it wouldn't happen like that.
No.
But everything has changed so much. The industry has changed so much. So many things that used to be cool, they are not cool anymore. And people literally don't see it. It's just not cool anymore. Like sometimes, even the fact that you might be drinking one beer, that depending on the people that are around you, that might not even come across as a good thing, depending on your position within the organization you're working with. So it's really like the very opposite of what that movie portrays. It's a fun movie, but that's long gone. That definitely doesn't happen.
Yeah, exactly. I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed watching it, but yeah.
Amazing, Ruud. Thank you so much for your time, my friend. I really appreciate it. I think the conversation was really, really good. I think we just did a great podcast here, and I'm sure that down the road, we will be talking again. We'll be doing another podcast. I wish you all the best. Have an amazing time on the upcoming dates that you have on tour this summer. And I hope to see you at some point soon.
Yeah, man, it would be great. Vegan pizza in London.
Perfect. Sounds like a date to me.
Yeah, man. Great.
Good stuff. Thanks, Ruud.
You're very welcome.
I hope you guys enjoyed this conversation, this podcast, as much as I did doing it. So, if that's the case, please do follow on Instagram at rollercoastercarl, myself at Carl Casagrande, on Twitter, same thing, Facebook, same thing. Do subscribe Do subscribe on iTunes, subscribe on Spotify. That's very, very much appreciated. Thank you and have a great, great day. Cheers. Bye-bye.